The personal assistant gig for the Winthrop heiress came with an AI symbiotic life contract. Every point of contact will deduct from your life value. The system's voice stated, cold and flat. But the heiress had a penchant for getting too close. "Ethan, your ears are red." Leaning against me in the elevator, drunk on champagne, she'd murmur, "This whole contract boyfriend thing is kind of fun." At her birthday party, egged on by her friends, I was pressured to feed her a slice of cake. "I forgot, you're allergic to mango." Later, I took a knife for her, a kidnapper's blade that ballooned red across the buttons of my shirt. The system warned me, terminate the contract before your life value hits zero. It's the only way to survive. But then she was the one who hit the kill switch. "Forget me," she whispered, "and live." Well, my name is Ethan Hayes. I'm the personal assistant to Stella Winthrop, the sole heiress to the Winthrop Enterprises fortune. I didn't read the fine print on my employment agreement. All I saw was the annual salary and the long string of zeros that followed it. I was too busy thinking about my mom's medical bills, about the down payment on a one-bedroom condo I'd had my eye on for months. I just signed my name and pressed my thumb to the digital scanner. The person who onboarded me wasn't from HR. It was an AI, a personal management system. Codename Nexus. Its chilly, synthesized voice downloaded directly into my consciousness. Contract sync complete. Terms loaded. Execute duties of personal assistant. Core limitation. The price of proximity. It paused, a microsecond of calculated silence. Each instance of direct physical contact with the contract principal, Stella Winthrop, will deduct from your life force energy. The deeper and more prolonged the contact, the greater the deduction. When your life force energy reaches zero, you will permanently forget all information pertaining to her, too, including the existence of this contract. I froze. Wait, what do you mean, contact? Nexus was devoid of emotion. Physical interaction. Skin to skin. The passing of objects. Close proximity engagement. For example, your hands touching when you pass her coffee. For example, her tapping you on the shoulder. For example, her standing too close. All of it applies. It is recommended you maintain maximum possible distance. For the safety of your memory. For the money. I accepted it. Besides, keeping my distance couldn't be that hard. I was an assistant, not a bodyguard. Maintain a 3-foot bubble. Use a tray to deliver documents. Stand back when speaking. Free Stella Winthrop was a handful. A goddamn handful. The only heir to the Winthrop empire. 25 years old. And yeah, she was gorgeous. The kind of beautiful that stops you in your tracks. Porcelain skin. Eyes that tilted up ever so slightly at the corners, making her gaze feel like it could snag on you. And a temper to match. For my first day, I placed her black coffee on the vast expanse of her mahogany desk. The second my fingers left the saucer, she leaned forward. The distance between us vanished, shrinking to inches. I could feel her breath ghosting my chin. "You're the new one." Her voice was low, laced with a kind of bored amusement. She tapped a long, manicured nail against the porcelain cup. "Let's get one thing straight. I drink a double-shot cappuccino. No foam. A cappuccino with foam is garbage." Nexus's alarm blared in my skull. Warning. Close proximity engagement. Life force energy, -1. Remaining life force, 99 days. 5 the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I jerked back, taking a huge step away, nearly knocking over a leather armchair. Stella Winthrop lifted her gaze from the coffee. Those stunning almond eyes narrowed. "What are you dodging for? Afraid I'm going to bite?" Her eyes drifted to the side of my head, and a slow smirk spread across her lips. "Ethan, your ears are red." To make matters worse, she seemed to find this whole thing deeply entertaining. Stella had a mean streak. Take document handoffs, for example. She could have just taken the folder from me normally. Instead, she'd wait until my hand was right in front of her, then deliberately let her fingertips graze the back of my hand before she leisurely took the file. Nexus, ever the diligent timekeeper. Indirect dermal contact. Life force energy, -0. 5. 6, or when I had to give her a rundown of her schedule. She'd insist I stand on the far side of her massive desk while she lounged in her executive chair, spinning a pen. When I finished, she wouldn't dismiss me. She'd just get up, walk around the desk, and stop right next to me. That charity gala next Wednesday. Walk me through the guest list details again. Her body, wrapped in a faint, expensive perfume, would be right there. Her arm brushing against mine. Warm. Soft. Nexus, cold as ice. Intimate proximity contact. Life force energy. -1. A month went by. I checked my status. Life force remaining. 72. I was losing almost a full point a day. I made a note on my phone, bolded and underlined. Must maintain distance. 3 exclamation points. My life depended on it. Stella probably thought I was the most amusing assistant she'd ever had. Because I dodged. She'd step closer. I'd slide away. She'd advance again. I'd retreat. It was like a twisted tango. It usually ended with my back pressed against a wall or a door, with nowhere left to go. And then she would smile. Her eyes would crinkle, like a cat that had just cornered a mouse. 7-inch, hey, Ethan, are you like allergic to me? She asked me that once in the executive elevator after a marathon board meeting. It was just the two of us. A confined space. Her perfume felt like it was wrapping around me. My back was flat against the cool, brushed metal wall, trying to create as much space as the small car would allow. No, I stared at the glowing floor numbers as if they were a lifeline. Just maintaining a professional distance. She let out a soft huff. The tips of her heels tapped a restless rhythm on the polished floor. Boring. She said it was boring, but I could see the smile playing on her lips. She wasn't angry at all. 3 months in, Stella had to attend a high-profile tech summit afterparty. The host was a college friend of hers who insisted on pouring drinks down her throat. Wine, tequila, cocktails, a dangerous mix. Stella was wasted. I drove her back to her penthouse overlooking the Hudson. I parked the car in the underground garage and got out to open her door. She stumbled out on her stilettos, lost her balance, and reached for me. My first instinct was to pull back. Nexus screamed in my head. High risk, contact imminent. But I was too slow. Her hand, warm and slightly damp, clamped around my forearm. Hard. Half her body slumped against me. The scent of alcohol and perfume enveloped me in a dizzying cloud. Don't move, she mumbled, her voice thick and slurred. Help me. The floor is spinning. Nexus delivered the verdict. Direct, sustained contact, medium drain, life force energy, -2. The skin on my arm felt like it was burning where she held it. I stood there, rigid as a statue, trying to be nothing more than a lifeless support strut. I guided her toward the elevator bank. She leaned almost her entire weight on me. Her head rested on my shoulder, soft strands of her hair tickling my neck and jaw. Her hot breath fanned across my earlobe. You know, she began suddenly, her voice dangerously close. This contract, my heart hammered against my ribs. It's kind of fun. She took a shaky breath, as if she'd forgotten the second half of her sentence. My throat was tight. I didn't dare turn my head. I kept my eyes locked on the cold, sterile white of the parking garage corridor ahead. What contract? She nuzzled her head against my shoulder, finding a more comfortable position. You know, this. She let out a muffled giggle, pretending we don't know each other, even though we see each other every day. Having to be so formal. It's like we're in some stupid romantic comedy. It's fun. Now the tension in my chest eased. A false alarm. The contract she was talking about was just our bizarre boss-assistant relationship, not the one that was literally killing me. We got into the elevator. The mirrored walls reflected our two figures. She was still leaning on me, her eyes half closed, looking like a drowsy, priceless Persian cat. Nexus was a meticulous accountant. Sustained medium-level contact. Drain rate, -0.001 per second. Disengage as soon as possible. The floor numbers climbed slowly. 36 floors. Time had never moved so slowly. Hey, Mr. Assistant, she slurred again, her voice thick with sleep and amusement. Ever play? Contract couple. My brain buzzed, and for a second, I thought Nexus had short-circuited. Ms. Winthrop, you've had too much to drink. I tried to angle my arm away to minimize the surface area of contact. Ugh, such a prude, she mumbled, but didn't press the issue. The weight on my shoulder just seemed to get a little heavier. We finally reached the penthouse level. The doors slid open. She managed to stand up, but her steps were still unsteady. I watched her press her thumb to the biometric scanner. A soft chime, and the heavy, slate gray door slid open. "You've arrived safely," I said, my voice all business. "Get some rest, Ms. Winthrop." I was ready to make my escape. "Ethan." She turned, leaning against the doorframe. Her eyes were hazy, her cheeks flushed from the alcohol. "Tonight." She paused. "Thanks." And with that, the door closed. I stood alone in the silent, opulent hallway. Nexus was still chiming in my head. Contact terminated. Total deduction for this instance, 3 points. Remaining life force, 69. A raw deal. But somehow, it didn't feel like a total loss. Stella's birthday party was on a private yacht. Her idea. She said hotel ballrooms were boring. She'd booked out the entire Marina Club. A live band. A tower of champagne glasses. My job, besides arranging every last detail, was to be there as her dedicated assistant for the whole night. The yacht had 3 decks. A soft sea breeze blew. The lighting was low and flattering. Stella wore a champagne-colored slip dress with spaghetti straps. Her long hair was in loose waves. The smooth skin of her shoulders and collarbones seemed to glow under the lights. Surrounded by a glittering crowd of other trust fund kids and socialites, she was the center of gravity. I stood back, near the corner of the bar, professionally scanning the area, making sure everything was running smoothly, keeping my distance. Then someone started making a scene. It was one of Stella's best friends from college, another heiress named Chloe. She was bubbly and always stirring up trouble. "Stella," Chloe called out, grabbing a microphone. Her voice, amplified by the speakers, was full of playful malice. "Where's that devastatingly handsome assistant of yours? Where are you hiding him? Get him over here. He's got to join the fun." Instantly, a dozen pairs of eyes swiveled in my direction, including Stella's. She looked at me from across the crowd, her eyes dancing with amusement. My cover was blown. The anonymous employee had been summoned. I had no choice but to walk over, making sure to stop a good 3 feet away from her. "Ethan," Chloe waved me over. "Come on. You're the man of the hour. You have to celebrate." She pointed to a long table. "Look, Stella's favorite mango passion fruit tort. The birthday girl has to make the first cut, right? But after that," she grinned mischievously, "our little tradition says the first bite has to be fed to her by the person closest to her. It's symbolic." The crowd erupted in cheers. "Yeah, feed her a bite. Go on, Ethan. Show us how it's done." The pressure was immense. Stella stood in the glow of the champagne tower, arms crossed, watching me with a smug, expectant look on her face. She had no intention of saving me. She was enjoying the show way too much. The cheering grew louder. I was trapped. Gritting my teeth, I stepped forward. I picked up the silver cake fork from the table and scooped up a small corner of the tort. "Nexus, my ever-present warden. Contact imminent. Target proximity is dangerously close. High risk." I tuned it out. Holding the small piece of cake, I walked toward Stella. Her eyes were bright under the party lights, shimmering with laughter. She watched me, as if to say, "So, how are you going to do this?" The cheers were deafening. "Come on, man, do it. Don't be shy, Ethan." I took a deep breath. Leaning my torso as far back as I could, I extended my arm to its absolute limit, like I was doing a one-armed plank. The fork, with its wobbling piece of cake, made a slow, precarious journey toward her lips. A perfect, extreme distance feeding posture. There was at least 1.5 feet of air between us. The crowd went silent for a second. Then, a massive roar of laughter. "What the hell is that? Dude, is that a yoga pose? Your form is perfect. Stella, did you hire an acrobat?" Even Stella looked surprised for a moment, before she started laughing so hard her shoulders shook. She reached out and grabbed my rigid, outstretched arm. Nexus went into red alert. Direct dermal contact. High concentration proximity. Severe drain. Her warm fingers closed around my forearm, her grip surprisingly strong. She effortlessly collapsed my defensive perimeter, pulling both me and the forkful of cake closer. So close I could see the tiny seeds on a passion fruit glaze. All right, she said through her laughter, her voice just loud enough to cut through the noise. "That's enough. I'm allergic to mango, you idiot. Did you forget?" The laughter died instantly. Everyone stared at me. Their expressions were a mixture of confusion and pity, including Stella. Her eyes, beyond the mirth, now held something else. Something I couldn't quite read. Nexus's notification tone seemed to stretch out in my head, like it was short-circuiting. Contact terminated. Analyzing emotional variables and task-based context of the event. Deduction. 5 points. Remaining life force, 64. Later that night, after the party wound down, I was taking Stella back to her penthouse. In the elevator, just the two of us. She leaned against the corner, a thoughtful look on her face. Hey, Ethan, earlier, did you really forget, or were you doing that on purpose? Scared of getting too close. I stared at the glowing red floor numbers. Ms. Winthrop, I was simply trying to avoid contact with a known allergen, fulfilling my duties as your assistant. She let out a soft, breathy laugh. She didn't say anything else. The elevator arrived at the top floor. The doors opened. She walked out, the sound of her heels echoing in the late-night quiet of the hallway. Just before opening her door, she stopped. She didn't turn around. Next time, don't stand so far away. It looks, she paused, ridiculous. The door closed. I stood outside, feeling the aftershock of my heart thudding in my chest. And in my head, Nexus is cold, HAR number, 64. Stella was attending a major overseas tech summit. We flew halfway around the world. I was her attending assistant. The conference was high-level, with intense security. The final night's gala was held at the private estate of a tech founder, deep in the countryside outside the host city. Halfway through the evening, Stella was invited by the summit's top executives for a private discussion about a potential deal in a glass conservatory at the back of the mansion. She gave me a look as she left, signaling me to wait for her in the main ballroom. I found a spot near a pillar and kept my eyes on the entrance. Alert. About 30 minutes passed. Then, from the corridor leading to the conservatory, a figure emerged. She was wearing a champagne-colored gown identical to Stella's. Her height and hair were a match. She wore one of the feathered masks provided to all the guests. But her walk was unsteady. Head down, she moved quickly, almost scurrying, toward a service exit at the other end of the hall. A knot of ice formed in my stomach. Something was wrong. Stella didn't walk like that. And she had been perfectly fine when she left, not drunk enough to be stumbling. I immediately pulled up the security tracking app on my phone. The signal from Stella's smart bracelet was still pinging from inside the conservatory. Shit, an imposter. Without a second thought, I broke into a run, heading for that service exit. The ballroom was crowded and loud. The music pulsed. The figure in the gown slipped through the service door. The heavy fire door swung silently shut behind her. I slammed into the door, shoving it open. A dimly lit service stairwell, illuminated only by the eerie green glow of emergency lights. The woman was gone, but I could hear the sound of hurried footsteps from the landing below. And a muffled, struggling sound. A whimper. Stella. I practically threw myself down the concrete stairs. I rounded the last turn onto the landing. In the gloom, I saw two big guys dressed in catering uniforms. Point one had a chemical-soaked cloth clamped over Stella's mouth and nose. The other held her limp body, dragging her roughly toward a heavy steel door that led to the underground parking garage. Stella was still fighting, her eyes wide with terror. Her dress was torn, one of her heels missing. When she saw me at the top of the stairs, a choked, desperate sound escaped her throat. A hot surge of adrenaline flooded my system. Let her go. The voice that came out of me was a stranger's, raw and guttural. The kidnappers were clearly shocked that someone had followed them so quickly. One of them let go of Stella, spun around with a snarl, and pulled a switchblade. The blade caught the green light as it snapped open. He lunged, aiming straight for my gut. It all happened in a split second. The stairwell was narrow. I twisted my body, dodging the initial thrust. But the guy was fast, changing his lunge into a vicious slash. The blade cut through the air, aimed at my side. Nexus's alarms exploded in my skull, a frantic, blood-red siren. Extreme danger, imminent threat. Evasive maneuvers are highest priority. Evade now. In that instant, instinct took over. I didn't think about Nexus, or the contract, or the goddamn points. My focus was singular. The chemical-soaked cloth over Stella's face, and the sheer, suffocating terror in her tear-filled eyes. I could have dodged the knife, but dodging would have meant losing my footing, losing the chance to get that cloth away from her mouth. 20 inches a fraction of a second, I made the choice. My left hand shot out, not to block the knife, but to grab the wrist of the man holding the cloth to Stella's face. The blade sliced into my side. It wasn't a sharp pain, but a heavy, sickening thud, like a hot, cold pipe being driven through me. The tip of the knife twisted inside, and a searing, tearing agony followed. My left side went numb, then was instantly drenched in something hot and wet. But my hand found its target. I clamped down on the kidnapper's wrist. Using every ounce of strength, I had to wrench it away from Stella's face. A guttural roar of pain and the sickening crunch of bone breaking echoed in the stairwell. The chemical-soaked cloth fell to the floor. 21 Stella gasped, taking in a huge, ragged breath before collapsing into a fit of violent coughing. The guy with the knife, seeing I was still standing, grew even more frenzied. He ripped the blade out of my side, sending a spray of blood into the air, the coppery smell filling my lungs. He lunged again, this time aiming for my heart. Adrenaline was the only thing keeping me upright. Fear and pain were distant echoes. While still twisting the other guy's wrist, I moved on pure instinct, turning my body just enough. I narrowly avoided a fatal blow to the chest. The second stab plunged deep into my upper arm, tearing through muscle and pinning me. He twisted the handle, trying to destroy my arm completely. The pain was a white-hot supernova. My vision swam with black spots. My mind was a storm of Nexus's frantic, screeching warnings. Critical physical trauma, massive blood loss, vital signs crashing, contact status, extreme trauma-induced contact, forced energy extraction, alert, alert. There was no way out. It was him or me. No, Stella had to be safe. That one thought cut through everything else. The agony from the knife, still embedded in my arm, drove me over the edge. I used the force of him twisting the blade, not to pull away, but to lunge forward. With the last of my strength, I turned my entire body into a weapon and slammed my forehead into his nose. Crunch. The sound of breaking bone was sickeningly loud, followed by a scream that was more animal than human. He staggered back, clutching his face, blood and tears streaming from his eyes. The knife was still stuck in my arm. 22 inches that moment of shock, my uninjured right hand shot out. I grabbed the wrist of his knife hand, put my shoulder down, and slammed him into the cold, rough concrete wall behind him. His head hit the wall with a dull thud. He slid to the ground, unconscious. The other kidnapper, his wrist broken, finally recovered enough to charge me. Bang! The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, a brutal explosion of sound that made my ears ring. The estate security and local police, not 30 seconds behind me, had finally arrived. 23 police swarmed in, guns trained on the two men. Get down, on the ground now. The world went quiet. All I could hear was my own ragged breathing, the thick, sweet smell of blood, and the frantic pounding of my own heart. Thump, thump. It felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. The kidnappers were cuffed and dragged away. Stella was still slumped against the wall, coughing, gasping for air. Her beautiful dress was filthy and torn. Her face was streaked with tears, her perfect hair a mess. One of her feet was bare on the cold concrete. She stared at me. The terror in her eyes was still there, but it was mixed with a look of profound, disbelieving shock. Ms. Winthrop. When I spoke, my voice was a broken, hoarse whisper. My throat tasted like blood. Don't talk, one of the security guards yelled, rushing to my side to support me. He spoke into his radio, his voice urgent. We need paramedics, 2 victims, one with minor chemical inhalation, one with multiple stab wounds, severe blood loss, now. Stella struggled to her feet, stumbling over to me. 24 she reached out, as if to touch me, but then stopped, her hand hovering in the air. The knife was still embedded in my arm. The wound in my side was a torrent, my white shirt soaked through with a horrifying, expanding stain of crimson. Blood dripped steadily onto the floor, forming a small, dark pool. Her eyes fixed on the blood. Her lips trembled. Her face was ashen, a stark contrast to the brilliant red staining my shirt. Ethan. Nexus, that bastard, chose that moment to chime in again. Its voice was distorted, like a corrupted audio file. Warning: extreme lethal trauma contact. High-intensity, forced energy extraction initiated. Calculating cardiac stress, blood loss volume, trauma index, life sustainability. Final assessment complete. Immediate life force energy deduction, 30 points. Current remaining life force, 34. 30 points. My head spun. Not even the two knives had made me feel this dizzy. 25-inch warning. Nexus's voice was utterly without mercy, growing more frantic. Remaining life force entering critical threshold. 32. 9. Continuous energy drain detected. Contractual failsafe protocol triggered. Option generated prior to total life force depletion. You may initiate a unilateral, forced contract termination. You will forget Stella Winthrop, but you will not die. The forgetting procedure is permanent. The price: permanent amnesia regarding the existence of Stella Winthrop. Choose now. Forced termination. Yes/no. 26. Terminate the contract. I could live. I just lose my memory of her. The number 34 burned in my mind like a brand. The searing pain, the icy weakness from the blood loss, and this damn doomsday clock in my head. The world started to go dark at the edges. Paramedics were running down the stairs. Stretchers, oxygen masks, tourniquets. The stairwell was a blur of frantic movement and shouting. It all sounded like it was happening underwater. 27. Stella's eyes never left mine. She was biting her lip so hard it had turned white. She couldn't hear Nexus's screaming, but she could see the life draining out of me. The fear in her eyes slowly receded, replaced by a fierce, almost obsessive focus. She wasn't crying. She wasn't hysterical. She was just looking at me, her gaze boring into mine, as if she was waiting for an answer to a question she hadn't asked. Ethan. Her voice cut through the chaos, clear and sharp. It was cold as ice, but I could hear a tremor she was fighting to control. Don't you die. She spoke each word with a terrifying, deliberate precision. Don't you fucking die on me. Maybe it was her words, or maybe it was the blood loss. My world went completely black. 28. When I woke up, the first thing I smelled was antiseptic. My eyelids were heavy, glued shut. I forced them open a crack. The light was harsh. A private VIP hospital room. It was quiet, except for the soft, rhythmic beeping of the medical monitors. My arm and torso were wrapped in thick bandages. The anesthetic hadn't fully worn off, leaving a dull, pervasive ache. It was manageable. 29. I shifted my eyes. Stella was sitting in a chair by the window. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring out at the gray, pre-dawn sky. The early light carved her profile into a sharp, unforgiving line. Her jaw was clenched tight. There were dark, bruised-looking circles under her eyes. A half-smoked cigarette smoldered between her fingers. She changed into a set of clean, dark gray silk pajamas. Her hair was pulled back messily, revealing the pale skin of her forehead. She looked utterly exhausted, held together only by sheer, stubborn force of will. A bowstring pulled taut to its breaking point. You're awake. She didn't even turn her head. Her voice was raspy but calm, as if she were commenting on the weather. Stell. I managed one hoarse syllable before Nexus's alarms went off in my brain like a disturbed hornet's nest. It was louder and more frantic than ever before. A blinding red static filled my consciousness. 30-inch warning. Final decision window. Life force energy in continuous drain. 32. 1. Critical red zone has been breached. Terminate the contract immediately. Termination will halt the energy drain. Choose survival or choose memory. Terminate the contract. Failure to comply will initiate memory wipe protocol upon energy depletion. The process is irreversible. 10, 9, 8. Nexus was counting down. A cold dread seized my heart, sharper than any knife. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare at the silent figure by the window. I was out of time. The instant Nexus started the countdown, Stella whipped her head around. Her eyes, bloodshot and raw, locked onto mine. They were filled with a bottomless exhaustion, a sharp clarity, and something I had never seen in them before. A look of desolate understanding. She stubbed out her cigarette. She stood up and crossed the room in 3 quick strides, stopping at my bedside. She looked down at me, her shadow falling over me. This close. She had shattered the safe zone I had spent nearly 2 years desperately trying to maintain. Nexus. She spoke. Her voice was cold. She wasn't talking to me. My pupils contracted. My mind went blank. How did she know about Nexus? The countdown in my head stuttered, letting out a short, confused burst of static, as if the AI itself was baffled. Stella stared into my eyes, as if she could see past my reflection and into the screaming AI in my skull. Override contract termination authority. Administrator, Stella Winthrop. Access key. She recited a long, complex string of alphanumeric characters. A command phrase. It was cold, metallic, and precise. Nexus went silent for a beat, processing. A few seconds later, its synthesized voice returned, flat and mechanical. Authentication successful. Administrator privileges confirmed. Contract termination portal is now open. A massive, blood-red, virtual button materialized in my field of vision. It hovered in the air right in front of Stella's pale, determined face. Pulsing on its surface were the stark words. Force contract termination. Initiate memory. The countdown resumed. 6, 5, 4. No. I pushed the sound from my throat. It came out as a ragged, desperate rasp. My uninjured hand rose, trembling, trying to push something away. A button? Stella's hand shot out and clamped down on my rising wrist. Her grip was immensely strong, her knuckles white. She was shaking. Look at me. Her voice was stretched thin, like a wire about to snap. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but tearless. There was only a kind of shattered resolve in them. Ethan, one last time, look at me. The heat of her skin burned against mine, accelerating the drain on my life. Nexus's countdown was a death knell. 3, 2. I started this contract, she said, her words rushing out, as if she were trying to outrun death itself. So I'll be the one to end it. Listen to me. You are going to live. As the last word left her lips, she tightened her grip on my wrist. She didn't pull my hand away. She forced it forward. Using my own fingertips, she pushed toward the blood-red virtual button only she could see, only she had the authority to activate. My finger, guided by hers, pressed down on empty air. Contract termination command executed. Nexus announced, its voice devoid of any emotion, almost sounding relieved. Target, Stella Winthrop. Associate, Ethan Hayes. Confirming activation of Forced Memory Wipe Protocol. VMMM. A strange vibration shot through me, like a high-frequency current passing through my soul, only to be ripped away an instant later. Stella's face, so close to mine, so full of broken determination, began to distort in my vision. The colors bled away, like a failing television screen. Losing signal. She watched my eyes. She watched my pupils dilate, lose focus. Watched as every trace of her existence was erased from them. The pressure on my wrist vanished. She staggered back a step, as if her bones had turned to dust, catching herself on the cold wall to keep from collapsing. I couldn't see the virtual interface anymore, but I could imagine what was happening. Phase 1. Extracting memory anchors. In progress, a heading flashed, followed by scrolling lines of text. There were my own logs, entered into Nexus's system. July 19th, 2024. Coffee preference. Double espresso, black. Machine parameters set. Below it, an image of a screenshot from my phone's Notes app, detailing her habits. August 15th, 2024. Exhibits severe nausea in response to shellfish aroma. Physiological reaction documented. September 11th, 2024. Note, Stella Winthrop, grade 3 mango allergy. Avoid all products containing mango. October 27th, 2024. Elevator security footage clip. Subject Stella Winthrop. Inebriated. Initiates physical contact with assistant. December 25th, 2024. Assistant's log S. Birthday gala. Peer pressure incident. The following text flickered and was replaced by a sanitized summary from Nexus. Increase in non-essential contact events during execution of duties. Drain warnings triggered. I couldn't feel her hand anymore, but I knew she was shaking violently. Phase 2. Extracting contract-related logs. A new heading appeared. The data was different. Not my work logs, but Nexus's own operational records. Contract binding log. July 1st, 2023, 9:17 a.m. Stella Winthrop confirms initiation of zero contact protocol preliminary phase. NDA signed. Subject matching parameters engaged. Candidate selected. Ethan Hayes. July 1st, 2024, 1:05 p.m. Subject Ethan Hayes signs employment agreement containing AI symbiosis clause. Contract activated. July 1st, 2024, 1:30 p.m. Initial life force energy, 100. Administrator note, S. Winthrop upon energy depletion, initiate total memory wipe. If contract is terminated early by administrator, execute forced memory wipe. Ensure subject's safety and isolation. Phase 3. Erasing emotional recognition as the final protocol began. Two glowing nodes appeared, labeled Stella Winthrop and Ethan Hayes. Countless thin, colored lines scanned back and forth between them, as if extracting an invisible connection. As the scan progressed, two images appeared in the corners of the screen. One was a dark, grainy shot from the parking garage elevator. A drunk Stella, huddled in the corner, clutching my discarded suit jacket, watching my rigid profile as I leaned against the opposite wall. The other was from the security camera in this very hospital room. Me on the bed, covered in bandages, staring blankly. And standing before me, Stella, exhausted but refusing to sit. Our gazes were locked across the empty space. The feed zoomed in, and the scanning lines between our eyes became a dense, brilliant web. They glowed white-hot, as if incinerating something. Emotional recognition factor, complex, concentration, Nexus's voice analyzed, hazardous level, assessment, complete severance required, purge command executed. The progress bar hit 100%. The glaring red button faded to black. With a soft hiss of static, the data file was permanently shredded. The hospital room was dead silent. Stella slowly let go of my hand. My wrist, marked with the pale imprints of her fingers, fell limply to my side. The skin was warm, then instantly cold. She drew herself up, lifting her chin. Her eyes were impossibly red, but she never shed a tear. She looked at me, her gaze burning, as if trying to commit one last thing to memory, or as if saying a final, desperate goodbye. Forget. Her voice was barely a whisper. Just forget. And with that, she turned. She didn't hesitate, didn't look back. She walked quickly to the door, almost fleeing. Her dark gray figure disappeared into the hallway. The door clicked shut with an unnervingly soft sound. The room was filled only with the monotonous beeping of the machines and the confused, empty beat of my own heart. A wave of vertigo washed over me. My consciousness was sucked into a vortex. Countless fragments of memory flew past and vanished. A beautiful face, always creased with a teasing smile. A pair of eyes that made me instinctively step back, that made her say, "Your ears are red." The faint, cool touch of fingertips against my hand when passing her a coffee. The intoxicating scent of wine and warm breath in a cramped elevator. A mango tort at a birthday party. The sound of laughter and her careless words, "I'm allergic to mango." Even the searing pain from the two knife wounds on my side and arm. And, at the very end, a pale, determined face impossibly close in my blurred vision. Everything, wiped clean by an invisible hand. Gone. The pain from my wounds was still real, still sharp. But the memories, the faces, the reasons connected to that pain, they were gone. I stared blankly at the white ceiling light. My mind was a perfect silent void. There was only the physical pain and a strange, nagging question. Why was I all alone in this hospital room? Epilogue. It's like she's known me. Forever. The hospital room, door opened. A woman in expensive-looking heels walked in. She was beautiful, but her eyes looked kind of intense. "Hello," I asked, my voice tentative. "Can I help you?" She walked over and set a fruit basket down on the bedside table with a soft thud. "Stella Winthrop, your boss." I was confused. My boss. But I'm a freelancer. She gave a short, cold laugh. Still a smartass, even with amnesia. You've been my assistant for a year and 4 months. Your salary is $60,000 a month. I almost shot up out of the bed. How much? She ignored me, picking up an apple and a small knife from the basket and beginning to peel it. Her fingers were long and pale, her nails neatly trimmed. You're allergic to mangoes, she said suddenly. At the last company retreat, you secretly ate a mango pudding. Your face swelled up like a pufferfish. I had to take you to the ER. I subconsciously touched my face. Really? She pushed the peeled apple into my hand. Why would I lie? The hospital bill is still in my desk drawer. The apple was sweet. She watched me eat it, her expression strange, like she was looking at a priceless artifact she'd just recovered. I'll be here to pick you up tomorrow when you're discharged, she said, standing up. You don't have to do that. I started to say, the passcode to your apartment is 0719. She picked up her purse and walked to the door. I said it. The door closed. I sat there, holding a half-eaten apple, completely bewildered. A nurse came in to change my dressings. I stopped her. Excuse me, that woman who was just here. Oh, Ms. Winthrop. The nurse's eyes lit up. She sat with you for 3 days straight. Wouldn't leave, no matter what anyone said. My heart skipped a beat. The next day, she really did come. She was driving a black Maybach. I nervously got into the passenger seat. Seatbelt. She leaned over me to pull it across. The ends of her hair brushed against my chin. It tickled, and then I smelled her perfume. It was so familiar, but I couldn't place it. Are you really my boss? I asked while we were stopped at a red light. She turned to look at me. Then she reached out and pinched my earlobe. You used to do this thing. Whenever you lied, your ears would turn red. They were burning now. We got to my apartment. I typed in 0719. The door clicked open. In the entryway were 2 pairs of slippers. One gray, one pink. The pink ones are mine, she said, slipping them on as if she'd done it 1,000 times. I come over for dinner every Wednesday. You cook. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at a note stuck to the refrigerator. Wednesday menu. Sweet and sour ribs, no garlic. The handwriting was elegant. It wasn't mine. So I turned around, trying to get a straight answer. She suddenly stood on her toes, leaning in until the tip of her nose was almost touching mine. Now, she whispered, remember anything yet? My breath caught in my throat. My heartbeat was a deafening drum. No, I said, my voice hoarse. But we could start over. She smiled, a real smile this time, her eyes curving into crescents. Okay, I'm Stella Winthrop, and I've been in love with you for a year and 7 months. My memory wasn't back, but my heartbeat was.